I'll start with this. I love Pharah. She's my third most played according to Overwatch. Realistically, she's probably my most played thanks to years of scrim hours on her not being counted. I've played her in pretty much every state that Overwatch has been in, which is why I feel like I'm fairly qualified when I say she has been way too strong for the last while. But in my opinion, there's a few different reasons as to why her strength has been so omnipresent for the last bit, and it's not for what a lot of people say. Pharah is Overwatch's Domino effect, so let's find out why. Normally in these videos, I've got a section covering like balance history and Overwatch 1 stuff. I don't need to talk about that for Pharah in this video realistically because there's about 4 things I can say, so we'll speedrun that segment nice and quick. But before that, I've got something that I never thought I would get to say, because it's time to talk about today's sponsor, Outplayed. I need footage for these videos, and I always try to go for clips that have at least some decent action going on in them. However, having to clip manually has caused me quite a few deaths and a good few angry teammates, but Outplayed will clip your highlights automatically. And even with the massive list of supported games, you don't need to worry about storage at all because it only clips what's important. What's important, do you ask? Whatever you decide. Do you want to make sure that your deaths never show up in the clips that it highlights? Well, you know what to do. Everything it clips will be in your timeline anyway, so you're going to know what icon to look for if it's something specific that happened. And if a clip is too long, or if you want to combine multiple clips together, there's an editor in the app that you can quickly use to slam them all together and then share away on Discord, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you want, all within the app. It's fully free to download as well, so my link for it will be in the description. But for now, back to Pharah. Alright, pre-rework Pharah could regen her fuel whenever. Concussed did no damage, and Jet Dash didn't exist. If you've any further questions, I'll probably answer them later. And I'd like to talk about Overwatch 1 like how I usually would in these videos, but there's also not much to say about Overwatch 1 Pharah, aside from when hit scans got their fall off nerf to the ground in 2020-ish and she became a top pick because you literally couldn't use her most common counter. She was a mainstay in quad DPS during coats, I was a psychopath who played her into double shield, and she was pretty solid in double bubble. So, look, we can move on from Overwatch 1 and it's time for Overwatch 2. Pharah's status in Overwatch 2 before her rework was weird. She wasn't the weakest, she just wasn't really popular. Probably attributed to the fact that we had this thing running around. And then there's the fact that she could infinitely fly if you had more than 2 fingers, which wasn't ideal with Overwatch 2's map design, and depending on the map, it just made her a pain to deal with, especially since the existence of Pharah limits what heroes can already be locked in. But it's even worse with this version since the girl was in the skybox 90% of the time. Combine that with her damn near mandatory need for mercy, and we have this little thing I like to call unhealthy design. As much as I do love Pharah, I don't think I can say in good consciousness that her kit is designed well. I mean, pub zombie in nature, reliant on another person dedicating their team slot to make her functional above certain ranks, and as much as I want to say skill issue, she is incredibly annoying to fight. Even more so if you're not someone with good range. So understandably, she got a rework. Now, I've said my piece about this rework before, but I'm gonna say it again here. Sure, it's incredibly fun, but it's about 2 steps away from a failure. Pharah's rework makes her even more reliant on mercy because she can no longer 2-tap 250 HP heroes, though that isn't part of her rework explicitly, so look, we can ignore it for now, but do know that it exists. While it did achieve its goal of making Pharah stronger in horizontal movement instead of vertical, it doesn't change the fact that Pharah was already pretty good in those horizontal spaces, and now she's even stronger in them. Jet Dash is incredibly powerful. As much as I love it, it's just too good. When they put damage into that concuss AoE and lower the knockback, it was probably intended to be used as part of Pharah's kill combo to try and damage enemies a little bit more after she double taps someone, but really, all it did was just give her another form of mobility alongside Jet Dash, where Jet Dash was meant to be that mobility replacement. What happens now is that I still have Concuss to go in once, and I've got Jet Dash to act as a mix-up so it's harder for people to hit me. I can use it as a way to just completely undo my mistake of going in if I think it's actually a bad play to go in, or even some mystery third option like just absolutely dunking on someone. Jet Dash just gives her a little bit too much freedom in that horizontal space. I've had a thought for the last while that Jet Dash should actually be tied to Pharah's fuel, as in, say Jet Dash has a cost of 33% of her fuel in order to be used. It still lets it be a powerful ability, but there's a higher cost to using it, other than doing something just like nerfing its cooldown. What you can then do is, if you don't have enough fuel required for it, have the amount of distance that you dash scale down based on the amount of fuel that you had. So if you only had 2% fuel, you're going to move barely anywhere at all, and if you had 0, well, you're just not moving whatsoever. With it being tied to a resource, there's an extra thing that you're going to have to think about if you're going to use Jet Dash. But look, I've been talking about the past of Pharah a little bit too much. All of you are here because of how she's doing in the present. And she is way, way too powerful. So let's just talk about how she is right now. She's way too strong, but it's for a whole host of reasons, so let's look into every single one. and the first place I want to start is still within her rework while we're on this topic. Another effect that this rework had on Pharah was just making her stronger on more maps. I will say that maps should be the meta. It shouldn't be the characters, it should be the maps that define how you play. But that doesn't matter with this rework because Pharah had her strong maps, she had her weak maps, but now this rework just normalized everything. So her strong maps really just got even stronger and her weak maps became pretty solid maps. It could even be cases where a specific point that she does better on. Places like Eichenwald 3rd was never exactly her favourite place to be previously, but now that she's, less focused on vertical, more on horizontal, well, she has an absolute playdate out there. Now, I'll say this one here just to get it over with. I do not care about your stance on 5v5 versus 6v6, but the lack of a second tank is nothing but a buff to Pharah. Previously, if the enemy diva kept flying up to a Pharah, kept trying to eat her rockets, taking a good chunk of her health away and the like, it didn't result in her team being at the mercy of the Pharahs because her other tank, whoever it may have been, was still there as the front line. If a diva or any tank goes on a journey to take down a Pharah, their team is now staring down a 4v4 without their own tank, who's only, the strongest member of their team. And this was the start of our domino effect. This was the first push that started to send Pharah over the edge, but it wouldn't happen yet. Then, obviously, thanks to 5v5, she needed her rework, which as I've already discussed, has its issues, especially when combined with a mercy. In the process of making her capable, making her strong without a mercy, her strength gets pushed over the edge again. Let's look back at those Season 9 changes that I mentioned earlier. Overall, the Season 9 patch was pretty good. I don't think anyone would take an issue with it, but for Pharah, it was a different story. Like I've said twice now, she can't double tap people at 250 HP, so she wants to have a mercy in order to have that double tap back on her rockets. Now, it can be argued that to counteract this, she was given that concuss damage in the AoE, but she's always had that damage on concuss, it was just previously restricted to direct hits only. The rework just made it an AoE. The big thing that Season 9 did to her was make her rockets the size of fucking Mars. Like, look, they're already pretty big. Your crosshair could have been a little bit off and it still would have been a direct on some characters because that's just how hitboxes work, especially with projectiles. But now, well, it's just a piss take, isn't it, lads? And there's two additional points that contribute to her strength, one of which I do not see enough people talking about. That being, Pharah has barely any sound cues. She's an extremely silent hero. The girl with a rocket launcher and a whole-ass jetpack suit makes less noise than Sombra, the stealth hero. She just really needs some added. Just anything that makes a louder noise when concuss is thrown out. Even just a voice line, like anything works. Even with stuff like jump jets and jet dash, it's damn near radio silence. There is no indication, which just adds on to her strength. But obviously, the biggest piece to this whole puzzle is hit scan. Hit scan has its issues. It really, really has its issues. They are too strong, but it doesn't matter how strong hit scan is when their fall off damage starts so early that one Pharah rocket jump just disables their ability to fight back against her. The rocket jump, or concussive jump, gives you roughly 15 meters of height, but when you take anything, like the height that you jump from, the height the enemy is at, and of course the actual distance they are from you, it all starts to pile up very quickly. And I do need you all to remember your trigonometry classes here. If I'm on Pharah, 20 meters above a soldier who is 35 meters away from me, do you know what the actual distance between us is? It's not 35 meters, it's not 20, fucking Pythagoras, 40.3 meters. That is the distance between the two of us. So if that soldier was shooting at me on the ground, where it's a flat 35 meters, I'd be just outside of his fall-off range of 30 meters, taking 15.68 damage per bullet. But considering that I am playing Pharah, I'm spending the majority of my time in the sky, the actual distance between us is always varying because of triangles. But using my 40.3 from earlier, his damage per bullet would come down to 12.15. Now, the nature of her kit creates extra fall-off, making her natural counter even weaker at taking her on. But that's ignoring how if you have a brain, hit scans aren't even the big counter to you on Pharah. It's not like tank matchups, you can maneuver around them, whether it's using stuff like natural cover, jumping at them from weird angles, just having a mercy, anything. But it doesn't end there, since alongside her ability to create extra fall off thanks to being able to add height to the distance, she's got two forms of horizontal mobility. She can create additional distance to add to that fall off even more. Or even just booping you, whether it's off some high ground or just further away from her. I hate to take the sides of the hitscan players, but literally what do they do when Pharah can extend their fall off damage even more? And meanwhile, Pharah is here with no fall off. Now I'll be honest with you lads, I don't want projectiles to have fall off, but I also look at some of the shit that I can pull on Pharah sometimes, and I'd be some cunt to complain about me not being able to output 120 damage rockets to someone over 100 meters away from me. Some projectiles should probably just have fall off. So I had a deadline for this video, meaning I wrote and recorded this the day that the patch notes had been released, so I hadn't a chance to play them yet. And after playing, I can confirm two things. First, Pharah is marginally weaker than before if you try to play her the exact same way, but it barely matters. And second, these tank changes are making this patch miserable for me, but that's not important right now, so I'll just bring you back. So how do you fix Pharah? Well, step 1. Don't be the Blizzard Balance team on the 9th of July 2024, 1900 GMT, because oh my god, this is the biggest joke of a patch I've seen in my life. And I'm only going to be focusing on 2 of these changes. This patch has other issues, we're not talking about those here. So first, let's look at the Pharah side of this patch. So she lost her damage on concuss. Oh no, it's not as if she already had that since the beta, and now it's just gone on the AoE. She still does damage on concuss direct, so it's not even like she's actually lost that much damage from this. And this other thing, like buffing it, it's just a buff. This has increased how far she can travel with it, it increases how much she can disrupt with it, having the radius increased is massive for her, like what? You tried to nerf Pharah this patch and you just buffed her. Like, I'm telling you, this is so stupid. Blizzard was looking at this, they saw Pharah at a 58% win rate, and they said, alright, look, we need to nerf Pharah, we need to nerf her, what do we do? Oh, I know. Let's take away that 30 damage her concuss does in an AoE. We can keep the 30 damage that it still does on directs, that'll be fine. Let's just get rid of the AoE damage. But then, that could very well plummet her win rate down to 30-something%. So you know what we do instead then? Let's bring back the old concuss actually. Just entirely bring back the old concuss. Yeah, just make that knockback stronger. Like, this is not a nerf. This is just a buff. This is an outright buff to her and no one can tell me otherwise. Oh, and the other change. Well, they went ahead and nerfed one of the other strongest DPS of this patch, Cassidy. And okay, makes sense, like instant hinder was pretty powerful, so what could they have done about him? Maybe they went ahead, maybe they nerfed the duration of hinder or something like that, because the instant hinder was too powerful. So, surely like an instant hinder nerf, like something like nerfing how much hinder does, anything like What is it? Why did they nerf his fall off? They nerfed his fall off. They nerfed Cassidy's fall off because hinder was too strong. They nerfed his strength against this is a Pharah buff. This is a Pharah buff. This Cassidy change is just a Pharah buff. They just buffed Pharah. They buffed Pharah again. This is just I don't even know if I can call this an indirect buff to Pharah, because this seems pretty damn direct at the moment. And don't even get me started on the fact that how fall off wasn't even his issue. Like, it's not like he was sniping people from across the map or whatever. Like, it was instant hinder was the only problem. Like, flashbang being brought back in the form of hinder, like, that was the one issue he had. That was the only thing sending him over the edge in terms of strength. And instead they buffed Pharah. Oh my lord. Like, I am a Pharah main. Like I already said, she's like my most played character. Even I think this is ridiculous. Like, this is so stupid. This is blatant character favoritism. Like, I cannot believe what I'm seeing here. You could not have made a patch like this up. Like, you could have told me this in like 2018 or something, 2019, whatever, that, one day what they're going to do is they're going to have a patch where Pharah's too strong and instead they're going to buff her. I would have looked at you like, nah, they'd never do that. No, they looked us dead in the eyes and buffed Pharah in front of our faces when the entire community was calling out for Pharah nerfs. This is genuine. It's genuinely comical. It's genuinely comical. Oh, God. Now, the hotfix went live after I recorded this, so PixelRory is here to talk about it. Quite simply, minus 25 HP is not doing much. Yes, Pharah is definitely easier to kill now. Hanzo can one-shot her, Drunkard has an easier time doing his one-shot combo onto her, hit scans are going to need less bullets even with fall-off to kill her, but it doesn't change the fact that she can still do everything that she's been doing. It's not like survivability was her main problem. Yes, I know I was talking about hit scans and fall-off earlier, so it certainly was a problem, but it wasn't her main one, because Pharah can still do Pharah things. So this change isn't accomplishing much as far as nerfs go, but honestly it's much better than the other patch, so I suppose we can take it. So actual Pharah fixes. How do we go about them? First is sound cues. Just give her sound cues. We're putting sound cues on concuss, jump jets, jet dash, all of it. Sound cues on everything. Like, it could be just a louder noise. It could just be a better voice line. Anything to actually indicate to people where she is, because half the time she's just stealthed. No one notices you when you're on Pharah. The only time someone notices you is when they see the massive red blob in the sky. That by itself, though, that's not enough. Let's be real. She needs more than just that. Another thing that I suggest would be to shift around her splash and direct damage numbers. Bring in something like the splash down to 40 and the direct up to 80. Or even a little more extreme, with the splash being only 20 and then the direct damage being 100. Actually reward the Pharah players who can land their directs instead of just getting fully splash damage from a mercy damage boost, just killing everything. And alongside that, we're also, please God, nerf her bullet size, nerf that projectile size. Season 9 made these things way too big. Like, nerf that down along with changing how it works in terms of directs, so that directs are genuinely, actually hard to hit. A change like this that encourages people who actually know what they're doing on Pharah is much better than something like a fire rate change or a projectile speed change, which only mess with the people who have actual muscle memory on her. You could argue about lowering her damage from something like down from 120 to only 100. Personally, I don't want that, but a case can definitely be made for us. But I will say some fall off would certainly be justified. I'll level with you, like I already said, I don't really want projectiles to have fall off. Characters like Genji, Hanzo, even like Ana or Zenyatta, I don't think they deserve to have fall off on their projectiles, because trying to land those at range, good luck. But with Pharah, I can't lie, it would be like 100% deserved, to be honest. I cannot justify it, really. I don't know what I would suggest in terms of the range. I think it should definitely be more than characters like Bastion and Soldier with their 30 to 50 range, but it should absolutely be underneath Widow in her 50 to 70. So I think if we make her mirror Sojourn with a 40 to 60 fall off range, that'd be pretty reasonable. And as for the fall off damage, I think just having it down to like the minimum damage it can do being 60 on a direct would be fair enough. I do think since there's no projectile in the game that has actually had fall off like this before, at least no AoE projectiles, I would have it so that the splash damage is always 20, like the usual 20 scaling down, instead of having the actual damage of the splash scale down alongside that. So you're gonna have 40 on directs and 20 on your splash as your minimum. The final change I would suggest would be that fuel requirement being added to Jet Dash like I suggested earlier. You could make a case that would be too much, but really I disagree with you. I just disagree. I think it would be a very, very reasonable change, because this much mobility on someone can be a problem. Like, sure, you could argue it would make her feel strange to play with how she's been for the last while, but she also went 7 years without having this jet dash at all, so I think she'll be grand. Obviously, as you can tell, like, all these changes are coming from someone who actually plays Pharah a lot. I want her to still be viable. I absolutely understand people who just want her to be gutted. I can't blame you for those feelings at all, but, I still want to be able to play my characters. Pharah's rise to power mostly spawned from her surroundings, which is how it's always happened in the past. The only direct buffs she received that could have actually aided in this was, her rework and technically the most recent patch. Everything else has been indirect changes that have just made her stronger, just changes that she benefits from. It's why I call her the game's domino effect, because all these changes added up and then all of a sudden she's the most powerful DPS in the game. I love Pharah, but it's so hard to enjoy her in games when really I could just be falling asleep and I'm still getting all 5 members of the enemy team. Like, the most fun I've been having on her recently has been taking on other Pharahs, Echoes, Falcon Mercies, even Doomfists in like dogfights in the sky, because those are the times where you can actually have your full skill expression being shown and there's like, actual gameplay there. It's not just me finding the people on the ground and shooting them rapidly. When she's in this superbly broken state, I just find her kind of boring to play because you've just got the better character. Maybe I'm just some kind of Pharah masochist, considering one of my favorite times to play Pharah was in Double Shield, where she really was not a best pick back then. Pharah into Double Shield was certainly one of the choices that I made, but honestly it was fun. It's probably a reason I enjoy it, because when if you win the game with a weak pick, it's like you just overcame God or something. But please, let me know your thoughts on Pharah below. Preferably keep your anger directed towards her and not me for enjoying her. That'd be nice, But sure, look, that's me for today. So for a bit of self-promotion, I have a Twitch, Twitter, Discord, all in the description, so you know where to go if you want to find those. But for now, if you're still here, go on, drop a like, a sub, all that YouTube stuff, and I'll talk to you next time, lads.